We're going to turn now to Minister Susana Muhamad of Colombia, who's going to talk to us about the way to Cali. Where are we? There. Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much, and it is amazing how time flies, and we are already here at the closing plenary. And it has been a tremendous 2 days of work where all stakeholders have come together and reflect on the experiences of what it means to try to save tropical forest. And as we mentioned at the beginning, it's not an easy experience since there are many variables that are at play, starting from the climate crisis and its effects that are visible, including in Colombia, where already almost 2% of deforestation is caused by natural systems themselves that have unleashed because of deforestation and climate change. But it also is the interplay of the livelihood of communities, illicit economies that are threatening the livelihoods and capacities of governments, and the process of governance and economic pulls and push that have created different forests in the world, including the Amazon, different bonanzas through time that actually have created environmental disaster and a lot of economic wealth for some others outside this forest. So when we talk about the road from Cali to Belém, we are talking about being in the middle of the decade where we are supposed to have our last window of opportunity to tackle emissions, climate change, but also biodiversity loss. And so if we are in the middle of the road, that according to science, we should be able to have very strong results, we actually are seeing that on the opposite side, we are not getting there fast enough. So these 2 years, that will be also 2 years from a very diverse region, 2 years where the world will meet to talk on the most pressing environmental and society issues in Latin America, will be also a great opportunity to start concretizing some of those goals. The Colming Montreal framework was an inspiring moment where the world could actually sit around and say, these are the 23 things that we can achieve. We are expecting in Cali to have countries put in their national biodiversity plans. And actually in Belém, in 2025, we're going to have the same countries putting together their NDCs, or actually their national determined contributions, almost taking stock of these 5 years, 10 years of actions since the Paris Agreement. And so is this an opportunity to start thinking on the relationship of the environmental crisis in a more integrated way, where we actually, as countries, governments, civil society, communities, can start understanding that nature, climate, and the need of change the way we live are all interconnected. And probably, if I can think about taking stock of those 23 goals that countries will be putting their biodiversity plans, but then also we will be accounting on the emissions, should we start seeing the whole picture together of where we are? How can we also have a common framing that allow us to understand if all these plans and actions and COPs are taking us somewhere else concretely? Probably I will bet, and this is a hope also for the COP in Cali, on this conversation between scientists and traditional knowledge systems. Science has put together, and we are willing in Cali to bring the IPCC, the IPBES, IPCC scientists working on the climate situation, IPBES scientists working on the biodiversity situation, but also the latest UNEP report on resource on the resource depletion on the world, and bringing a coherent picture of what's the reality from the scientific perspective. But then how that report, that synthesis report, will speak with the traditional knowledge of the indigenous peoples that are holding 80% of the biodiversity in the world. And what can emerge from that conversation that also give us light in terms of what we need to do on the ground, besides these grand plans that we have put together and that governments have committed to put together and that we need to put together, but that will not resolve the situation. We are willing in Cali also to make a step forward, a very strong step forward. It's something that looks very technical, but also talks about environmental justice, which is this DSI, or the development of these genetic sequences that are digitalized. And how can we contribute together to share the benefits of how genetic resources are being used and how that contributes to actually tackle the climate crisis. We will speak about finance and think about that the same conversation we're having in the biodiversity COP, we are having the same conversation in the climate COP. Is it time also to bring together the conversation, because we need to tackle these in a more integral way? And when we talk about that finance, we are seeing that the public money, the public expenditure needs to increase. This deep crisis will not only be tackled following profit. We are talking, as I was just discussing with France and the representative in this conference just a few minutes ago, we are talking about common goods of humanity. How do we all contribute for those common goods of humanity to stand so that we can all have the stability that we need? Just imagine what will happen if the Amazon basin gets basically burned. What will happen to climate and what will happen to biodiversity globally? It is a disaster for all. And so that's why also the financing needs to start putting on the focus, not only how do we pursue the profit that this new environmental agenda will bring, but actually where is the public money and where is the common goods that we need to build as humanity to protect ourselves and live within safeguard and safe limits, respecting the diversity of peoples, the diversity of knowledge, and the diversity of traditions and cultures. And finally, see if you have followed what I have said, indigenous peoples will be at the center and also local communities at COP in Cali. Because just by approving that work program for indigenous people, by approving a place for them as a permanent subsidiary body to the Convention of Biodiversity, we are sharing political power with those that on the land are actually protecting something that is of their own, of our countries, but it's also for the whole of humanity. And that will be an excellent example of how political power can start to be distributed in a way that accounts for a different world that we are building. In that sense, I am hopeful and at the same time worried. Hopeful that these 2 years in Latin America will sparkle a movement that goes beyond the frontiers and the barriers of our government systems, and that can mobilize people to something as important, as fundamental, as significant as being able to reconnect with nature and restore nature as a common purpose of humanity. And at the same time, worried because a lot of our systems keep being the same, a lot of our mindset keeps being the same. So I want to finalize inviting you all to come to Cali and to connect. And in that connection, sparkle something that is already there, because I know, I have seen it on the ground, is already there. The sparkle of reconnecting with nature, the sparkle of understanding that the way we live is not rational with nature, and that there is a new sense of purpose that goes beyond profit is something that I think can mobilize. And the only thing we need now is a big political mobilization, because the world is not an easy place. And we hope Cali can be a drop in the water, a drop in the sea that can contribute for waves to come of change. So thank you so much, and let's have hope and a lot of work for these 2 years that we want from Latin America to the world, but from also your capacities and perspective that go beyond what is required, because it's very limited time left. It's important, it's urgent, and we all depend on it for our future. Thank you so much.